Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday meeting of the VOCC. On the agenda at 1:30 is Public Works. Susan, I did check through my email and saw that and signed it.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It's just due midnight tomorrow, so I wanted to make sure we took care of it. So good afternoon, Susan Eugenis, Public Works. So the first item on our agenda is the ADA Accessible Transportation, excuse me, open house. So Public Works is required to do an ADA transition plan in order to continue our grant eligibility. It's a federal law. So I am working with PBS consultants to work up our draft transition plan. And as part of that, you need to do multiple public outreaches. So next Tuesday, March 5th, between 6 and 8, we're holding an open house at the Expo Center. So it's open to the public. The purpose of this is for us to inventory all of our sidewalks and ramps, which Public Works inspectors did on some of their downtime. Downtime meaning we don't have heavy construction going on. And we've imported into GIS. I'm working with PBS on the public outreach because that's not really a Public Works specialty, and planning which areas are going to be our highest priority. So I'm publicizing the open house. If sending them out, we have flyers. There's a flyer on the Public Works website, and it's out on our social media, out on our Facebook page for the public to see. Oh, and it's been on the paper, and I also heard it on the radio on one of the upcoming events.
How do you penetrate the woodland area? We've got quite a few neighborhoods that are unincorporated.
So in our research, when the inspectors drove around, we only have 2 small sections of sidewalk, one near the Woodland High School. So right in that area, we have some sidewalk. And then off the end of Insull, we have so Insull goes city, county, city, county. So part of that has sidewalk, but nothing else that's unincorporated currently has sidewalk.
Isn't there something up in the Lexington area?
So yes, our main sidewalk areas are Lexington and West Longview. We also have sidewalk on Hall Road up in Tootle. We also, I can never remember. There's one neighborhood in Kalama that is in the unincorporated area that has sidewalks.
Spencer Creek.
No sidewalks there.
The portion with sidewalk is actually in the city. So this is, we're inventorying, and as new sidewalk is put in, that'll be part of the inspectors. When they inspect driveways and new sidewalks, they will add it to our inventory. So when we develop this plan, it'll be a living, breathing plan. We'll be working on accomplishing projects in areas where we have damaged sidewalk or ramps that do not meet current ADA standards.
A couple of years ago, we approved a subdivision out at Gassman and Chapman and Gassman Road.
Yes.
And is that one of the areas that?
That is one of the areas. That one is currently only about 30% built out. So we have not added that sidewalk to the inventory. Once we hit somewhere between 50 and 75%, we will add that to our inventory and then just fill in the gaps as they come in.
Along the West Side Highway, you're just talking about the development inside.
Yes.
So when they turn in there, that would be a sidewalk right there.
Yes, there's sidewalk in that neighborhood.
And no
sorry,
sidewalks in
I'm
Red-
easily distracted because that gentleman over there put 2 pieces of paper that are labeled Plan B. So far, the text is the same, except some of the numbers aren't, and it's driving me crazy.
Thank you. I pointed that out too. So the one with highlights is
Okay, thank you.
is the
We'll,
current.
we'll get to it, right?
Yes.
I gave him a hard
I'll
time.
try to remain calm.
Code for interpretation to follow.
Yes. He handed it out too early and distracted you.
I hate when they mess with the old folk.
Well, speaking of that, I was in Riderwood recently. Not a whole lot of sidewalks there,
Correct.
but a community that could use ADA accessible network.
Yes.
Is that up to them then to phone in if they want something? Or is that just something, if you want it, you're gonna have to pay for it? 'Cause we don't do their side streets.
We generally don't do side streets. That is something that they could come in for a road improvement district and approach it that direction or local improvement district and pay for it that way, and then it gets added towards your taxes.
Curiously, sidewalks in Riderwood would actually probably be not advisable based on my old man experience.
Stop trips.
Sidewalks are for tripping. And they don't have sidewalks, and so they don't trip.
A lot of them use,
In Longview, it's
golf
sidewalks
carts.
plus trees equals tripping,
yeah,
big time.
a lot of them out there in golf carts and too, and I think they just drive up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was
Wherever they're
surprised.
at.
I only saw two.
Did you?
Yeah, it was,
Did you go around the block twice? They'll
Yeah,
start
yeah.
following you.
Yeah.
oh, they followed me, yeah. I
They're
was,
diligent.
Get this outsider out of here.
So along that vein, I've also reached out with this information to the Lexington School as a big community hub out in Lexington. And I requested from them their school walking route plan, because as part of our transportation transition plan, you're supposed to prioritize, and that to me would be a priority, a walking route to the school. And that is also one of the grants we look at. Now that we have a school, we're now eligible for Safe Routes to School again, and that has just opened up. So these are items that we're looking at.
So the COG just finished up an open house on this topic. I don't know if they have to follow the same kind of rules because they're handling all the grants. But did you get a chance to fold those findings into yours, or
I have not, but I most certainly can request them and forward them along, that we can
check off another?
box outreach.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So are we ready for my next exciting subject?
And
So
if you speak clearly,
I'll do my best.
or clear zone or something like that.
Yes, it's my clear zone inventory agreement. So this is an unusual agreement, so I wanted to run it by you guys today to get a feel of if you wanted it motion or consent. Thank you. I'm forgetting words today. So the clear zone inventory, this is being paid for by Highway Safety Improvement Program grant. And what this is we have a consultant that has specialized equipment that will ride every mile of the county road and inventory everything along our shoulders to help us determine potential high-risk areas where we should help our guardrail selection, and locations where we have things that we may need to have items removed. It's one of the rural emphasis is to more deaths occur on rural roadways than any other roadway. So more deaths occur on rural roadways than on interstates are the statistics. So that is the emphasis. And this is one of the projects that they feel is important, knowing what's out there. So this will drive up and down the road, inventory everything. We'll have pictures and we'll be able to put it into our GIS system to work on improving roadside safety.
It seems a bit odd that that has to have a machine to do it. I would think that your senior employees already know where the obstructions are. They travel it all the time.
But
Or
this,
am I misunderstanding?
this gives you everything in photographic of everything up and down the miles of roads. It also inventories some of your curves, your signs, people's beautiful walls that are out there. And so you have a statistical database. It is 100% funded project.
Yeah, all from taxpayers, yes.
Yes,
So who gets to keep the data?
we do.
Who gets to access the data?
We do.
And the funders.
No,
For when you
we
go-
do not need to provide it to the funding agency.
Do you mean taxpayer funded? But is that,
No, when you apply for all those grants, doesn't that go into the package that
Oh.
says, here's why we need this safety grant?
So if we use it in the future to develop safety grants, yes, we would be using this data moving forward. But at the end of the grant, I do not have to give a work product to WashDOT that says, here is our data set. That is not a requirement of the grant. It is not going to be shared with other agencies, other state and federal agencies.
Then why do it?
To improve our knowledge base within Public Works.
Is that data available to anybody in the county? Anybody in the world? PRR request?
If you do a public records request, yes, it would be available.
But you're going to keep it a secret until you get a public
And-
records request.
I'm not going to put it out on the website or anything like that.
And we're paying 138,000 or something like that.
That sounds approximately right, yes.
Yeah, going back to what I think was been asked, I've been, I'm still struggling with this list. What, can you give me an example of how this will lower your costs by $138,000? Over what span of time?
Now you're making me think today. So I know other jurisdictions had done this and I didn't refresh my mind on this before it came. I apologize. I don't have all this
Okay.
information popping in my head. It is certainly, I can pull it up and say how people are using it and what the benefits are. I'd be more than happy to have all of that and the cost with the saving, what the information is used for and how it saves you in the future.
Okay, thank you. That, it isn't a done deal just yet, right?
No, this is contract execution.
Yeah.
So,
So if it doesn't pass on Tuesday, then it doesn't go forward.
correct. And then we will reach out to our funding partner and work on shutting down the agreement with them. So based on this conversation, my feeling is that this should be on the motion.
Well,
Or do you want us
I
to push it a
guess-
week?
I guess knowledge for knowledge's sake is wonderful, but that's not what we're here for. If this is a tool to make us qualify for more safety grants, yeah, I mean, this database, improves the data set that you give to the folks who fund the grants. That makes it kind of legitimate, but you just told us it's not going to be used for anything. It's just to make us
Well,
more knowledgeable, and it's kind of like,
all right. I
we
guess
need a
I
better,
should-
we need a better benefit out of
You,
it.
you need me to refine how I say things because I looked at it as, well, we're going to have this information. So when we're looking at projects, when people say intersection of Oak Point and Mill, which is in the intersection I know has issues, we will have all the data there and we can compare it to, let's say, the Abernathy Creek and Germany Creek intersection, or a curve on Whitewater Road versus a curve on Germany Creek Road. We'd have information on this is an issue because there's trees there, or we would have that information, but I can gather much more data. Do you want me to push this a week and bring it back to next Wednesday to discuss again? It's not a time crunch that if we don't do it next week, the world's going to end.
Yeah, there are a lot of intangibles as well as tangibles. I'm typically going to feel uncomfortable about what seems like an incessant pursuance of grant funding. And I tried to explain that a little yesterday on the Board of Health, and that it's not unlike, I didn't use this, but maybe I ought to have this, kind of like I have a house and I've got a leak in the roof and it's bad enough, it's coming down the walls. I can smell the mildew. I can see the MDF kind of buckling up and turning black. But I decide instead of fixing the roof, I'm going to remodel the kitchen. And I use that as an example because it's inescapable that we are in a debt crisis. And I know I keep harping on, but one of these days you're going to say, you know, that old geezer, we should have listened. And so in this case, I'm trying to figure out is it something useful? I also had the meme up there from Groucho Marx, politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. And so I look at an effort like this, and I'm into the data stuff, obviously, but I also know it gets used badly and improperly. Hence my question, who gets to access it? Anyhow.
Yeah, the cynic coming out in me, it's been my experience, they rarely give you money without expectations on the other end. And how long before they say, well, if you don't repair this thing, we're going to withhold money. And I don't know. I'd like to know some other people who've been in it a while and that there's not mandates that follow this thing.
There's also a comment that mine's a terrible thing. The cost of housing with all the requirements and new requirements and the building codes, it's always justified on for your safety. At some point, getting out of bed's unsafe. I hope we're not going to get constrained to stay in bed. And so here I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, it's pretty neat technology. I like it. But if I put my cynic's hat, which is more cynical than the chairman's, I get a little worried.
So Susan, I know that we have plenty of roads that are probably not as high a standard as we'd like. And so it's always a matter of how do we prioritize the available monies that we have to apply to the road repairs, a never ending demand for safer roads. If this were a tool that would make a difference in being able to get more safer roads built or improved, yeah, but I didn't hear that justification from you, and that's why I asked the cynical questions.
And that's fine. And because I obviously did not prepare myself well enough for this today, I am happy to move the item from next week's agenda to the following week's agenda and bring this back next Wednesday with a better explanation and the tools of talking to the engineer who's been running this project, because unfortunately, I don't remember everything that I've been told. So I can have a better explanation of how we're using
Particularly
this.
if there have been safety grants that we haven't gotten, even though we've asked for them. Because
Yes,
you don't have the documentation or whatever. I mean,
yes. So, and that I will work up that information for you guys happily.
that would help me anyway.
Yeah. No,
That would be appreciated. Yeah.
yeah, that's not a problem at all.
Okay.
So,
I gotta say, I share some of Commissioner Morton's, our job isn't be safety monitors. I mean, people have to take at what point do people take responsibility? Hey, that curve's there. I don't drive that fast around that curve. Our job is to ensure liberty and freedoms, not to make sure everybody's got earplugs in when the sound gets too loud or that kind of thing. That just gets ludicrous in my mind. And usually at some point in time, it comes with some strings attached. So
The
I'm
other,
very cautious and cynic about that, sorry, but
a classic example of that, I think, is on on, is on Tennant Way, where I used to ride the bicycle and I had a huge area to ride the bike and still not be in traffic. Then they put the bump outs, and God, first day I'm down trying to beat into the headwind and hitting that thing, and then traffic can't make a right turn on a red light and all that, but I'm sure that was grant money. And I'm sure that was spent not because somebody said they needed it, but because it was grant money. That's really what we should avoid.
Well, it was
May have
even-
nothing to
It was
do-
even more insidious than that. We required a bunch of money from Walmart when they built their superstore to improve traffic access on Tenant Way.
I,
That was a condition of approval that they had to kick in money to.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. For Tennant Way, the
Yeah.
bump outs?
Well, remember the superstore is just off of Ninth.
Oh, yeah, but the bump outs I thought were, I mean,
Yeah, it's all on Tenant Way. Oh, yeah.
but they've propagated throughout the city of Longview. When I tried to talk to Bozarth, who was the engineer at that time, I might as well have been talking to a brick wall. He had no idea why or how, or just that he did it. I could get going, but I'll try not to. I'm still stuck on this thing.
You'll let us know if the recommendations are to increase the bulb outs.
Yes, we'll add bulb outs everywhere, just,
That's just before the roundabouts go in.
yeah, so we'll put the bulb outs to slow down the bikers. Isn't that what they're for?
Stop.
Evidently.
The bulb outs are evidently to slow down the bikers.
I'm trying, I have the old hearing aid. I had them on yesterday. It seemed easier. I got the new ones to see whether, could you say it again slowly?
The bulb outs are to slow down the bikers.
Probably. It's also to hold the trucks back. I mean, you know, even, Kalama River Road has a traffic circle now, just directly east of the freeway. Traffic circles are not a bad thing, but the old orthogonal intersections require much less area than a roundabout.
right.
But we don't want to give up that area. So now if you're a low boy and you want to go north on 99, you've got to go to the traffic circle, have a flagger go over there on the other side, stop traffic, and then go to the left, not the right, because you can't make it all the way around, and cut through. And to design stuff in there in this modern day and age, I would have to call somebody an imbecile.
Although the public has remedied that based on the skid marks, they just go right through.
Yeah.
They ignore it because it's not that high, right?
Except they can't still make that left,
Yeah.
that hard
Oh.
left.
I've seen plenty of people make that left. Going around the roundabout the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and then we don't know how to we citizen drivers typically don't know how to handle a circle, roundabout. And I'm just waiting I'm going around legally. I'm supposed to be at about 15 miles an hour. There's probably a young man behind me who says, "Who's this old fart here?" And I'm going right up the middle, and we're going to meet at the other side.
Yeah.
It's just an invitation for trouble. Now, that's a safety kind of thing I could get behind.
You want to fire a community meeting, bring up roundabout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I will ask, why am I blanking? Kelly to move that back to the agenda of the 12th, and I'll bring more information and be better prepared to discuss it with you guys next week. All right, so private road update, kind of wanted to give you an update of where I am in my schedule. So I have started working on the update. My plan is to bring to the board on our March 20th meeting, so our normal 1:30, my large concept potential changes that I want to make to get board direction on yes, that sounds good. No, that doesn't sound good, and explain some of my reasoning before I put a finalized draft out there. And then hopefully after that meeting, bring it back to a formal draft back to the board on the 17th of April. So that is the schedule I'm looking at, because I have some, we've had requests on, we want different standards for different numbers of houses on some of the lowers, and standardizing the expectations. I have a few things based on the reviews, things that we frequently see and are asked about to try and clarify through there. And so some of those items, before I make what could be large changes, I want to bring them to you guys for your direction.
So at what point does it get referred to the Building and Planning Advisory Committee?
So after we do the big concepts that I can get you guys behind, and I was planning on bringing the draft to you on the 17th, the Building and Planning Advisory Commission is the next day on the 18th. And so roll it out to you guys, and unless you saw something glaring in it on the 17th, I would take it to them on the 18th. So April.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And then I just had a brief, wanted to kind of let you guys know, we're having a lot of rain. We're expecting over 2 inches in the next from this morning through the end of tomorrow. And the snow levels anticipated to drop this weekend down as low as 300. So we have been out running our culverts and our ditches and making sure we're ready for the heavier rains. And then we're just going to watch the weather and see when we need to bring crews in, if we need to bring crews in. I'm hopeful that it'll be like the snow I had Monday morning. It looked beautiful in the grass and then the trees, but I live up over 1,000 feet and there was nothing on the roadways. So we're hoping
The
that.
end of a really long private road too.
Yes, I do live on a private road. I'm over a mile back on a private road. So
She has a lot of anecdotal evidence
on
about
private
private roads.
Question on that flooding kind of thing. Did you get informed as to what city of Kalama is doing? Because a few years ago, they were flooded, the post office flooded. It was a rather nasty mess.
when they do start having issues, they do reach out to us. So I know they have made some revisions to try and avoid that, but
I've heard bad things. I mean, an engineer knows it doesn't work until you test it. So if I'm counting on those pumps, I'm testing it no less frequently than every quarter.
I'll tell you an anecdotal story about someone who didn't test their pumps. Back when I was a consultant, I was modeling a fire suppression system and they pulled their water from the river. So I went out to do a site visit and calibrate my model, and they turned the pumps on and all we got was black ooze because they hadn't tested their pumps in several years. And I was like, well, you guys need to go out and dredge that. So yes, they do need to test their pumps. I do not know what they're doing with respect to that.
Well, and if memory serves me correct, the last time there was significant flooding in Lexington, it was a pump problem that hadn't been either maintained or was undersized or what as development occurred. But it has to be adjusted with the
Yes.
runoff. But I suppose with the other environmental rules where you have to have so many empty holes for stormwater to collect, you could get it overwhelmed, even though you're behind the levees.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about miscellaneous public works, or you want to do that? Up to you.
I'll do it either way. We can do it at the end.
Okay.
Let somebody else talk for a while.
Okay. All right. So we do have some miscellaneous items at the end, but we'll go ahead and capture those after facilities. So what Commissioner Mortensen was referencing is 2 documents. They both say Plan B. One has highlights, which is actually the revision. And I had to write, because he also gave me the same document in pink writing, I had to write which one was revised. So the revised one is it with highlights. And what this is we had come to the board in the fall around budget time with a proposal, which is the Plan B with no highlights. With recent information we've gathered on the conditions of our roof locations at 2 major locations, is that correct? We've made some revisions to this 5-year plan. So I'm going to go ahead and let Sean discuss a high level, low level, however you guys want to discuss it, kind of what that means for our facilities budget.
Good morning, Commissioner. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sean Roy, Public Works. Sorry to hand this out early and distract y'all. So we did have a roof inspection done on the jail facility and our annex building. The results of those inspections were that we expect another 3 to 4 years of life out of the jail facility roof. So we changed our plan. We would hope to push that back the 3-year period and move forward the annex building, which roof is deteriorating more than expected, and push that into 2024.
So Sean, I'm just a little bit confused. I thought it was 2 or 3 years ago that we did a major roof repair on the jail. Was that section A?
That is section A, yeah.
So you're talking about the next sections. the-
Sections B and
they're
C.
smaller,
Yes, sir.
right? Okay, thanks.
And so we just want to bring that to the board, and answer any questions about it. Want to use the dollars we have effectively and get the life out of the roofs we can.
But the annex roof is in more dire shape.
It is.
It needs to be next, huh?
Yeah. Will Tossett, Facility Service Manager. Yes, Annex and Admin, both you can see the threads coming through. Both roofs are end of life, which if we can get 3 to 4 years out of the jail, I'd rather fix the worst roofs before we do the jail. And I think that's why we want to move these numbers.
Yeah, we're not looking at any cost differences. We're just took a look at the quality and
Mhm.
saw that we have a little more life than we expected. So we're moving stuff around, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
I'm okay with the changes.
Yeah, I'm good with those.
Thank you.
I'm still trying to remodel the kitchen.
You and me both.
Before I let you guys leave, I have I was gonna do it on Monday and I wasn't here. I want to have a little bit of discussion on the landfill because I keep hearing things on this thing. I think I'll start with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. I saw Doug sent us out a copy of Solid Waste Advisory Committee, the bylaws, and then also the interlocal agreement that was done in 2007.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming these are both in place, although what's happened since 2007 is we actually purchased the landfill, right?
That's correct. Yes.
So, but this interlocal agreement stays in place. What happened to the ELF funds? They estimated there was 10 million in there.
So historically, the ELF fund was used as, and feel free to jump in, Sean, a fund that entities could borrow against to fund most often capital purchases. Is that correct? Go ahead.
Yeah, so the L fund is a reserve fund for equipment, land, and facilities, hence the name of it. When we closed or planned to close Tenant Way back in the 2004 period, we signed a contract with Waste Control at the time in 2006 to transport and rail all of our waste out of Cowlitz County to Eastern Washington. The interlocal agreement was signed in 2007. After that period of time, the landfill sale became available. I think that was 2009, 2010 period. And we signed a new contract with Waste Control at that period to haul the waste from the transfer station to the landfill, just to give a little history there. And so this ILA has remained in effect since that period of time. And to talk about the dollars, they were used to build out the landfill.
Mhm.
Okay.
But
there-
there's more to the story than that.
Sure.
It also was used to initially finance the jail. And it was borrowed. And so the governance committee was set up to get the cities involved because it was a city, county operation. And that,
Right.
of course, had to be paid back, but
Correct.
that governance committee was set up to allow that flexibility.
Yes, since that point in time, there was some policy changes. That fund is no longer used to loan monies. I believe that's a directive
Okay.
of State Auditor's Office. And there's no longer any debts maintained in that fund.
Okay, so they were all paid off out of that.
I believe the debts were transferred to the general fund.
Okay. So in our contract on the current landfill, who pays the debt on that?
Cowlitz County,
Cowlitz County itself.
yes,
Cities don't contribute.
no.
Who pays for the closing of the plant or the landfill when it does, which is a big process and big expense? Who's responsible for that?
Cowlitz County,
Cities don't contribute to that.
no.
No. Because I keep hearing this profit sharing, and I'm trying to understand why cities believe they should get money when they don't take any risk. I mean, that's like Bud Clary needs to send them money every month just because they're there. So I'm trying to understand that because I keep hearing this stuff and I watched, they called you guys over, so that got me interested in looking at that meeting. And I saw one of the council members, she actually got angry that they weren't getting the money, or in my opinion, it looked like they got angry. And then in the Wednesday we were talking about it, I hear, and I don't care about the comments. People can have their opinions, but I hear the comment, elections have consequences, ergo no profit sharing. I took that to mean because I was elected, nobody gets profit sharing. And I'm trying to figure out where this profit sharing came about in the first place. Was it in a public workshop? Was it backdoor? How did they even believe that they get money from us when they don't take any risk? I don't get it. I've seen contracts over 40 years and I've never seen that. So I'm trying to figure out how that started, why it's still even alive.
As a staff, during that time period when the commissioners were determining whether or not they were going to potentially lease the facility or keep the facility as an asset, I believe there were conversations, discussions about profit sharing. I wasn't involved in that. I don't know if Sean has additional context to provide.
I think you described it accurately.
Sorry, I don't have a better answer. I am aware that that was brought up. We were at, I can't recall if it was governance or SWAC. I think it was governance, where the cities brought that up as wanting the commissioners to consider this. To my knowledge, that wasn't approved. So
Okay.
So first, you're not being accurate when you say the cities don't pay any funds to the landfill.
no, they pay
They
funds.
collect the fees that we end up spending.
They
they're
pay
the
tipping
collection
fees and
agency,
transfer station.
Because when we raise the collection fees for the landfill treatment and all that stuff, we affect no customers. The cities pass that on to their customers. They are taking the political heat when the rates go up. Okay, so just that money doesn't come out of the general fund. It comes from the people who are paying their bills to waste control through the cities.
I will clarify my interpretation of the question, which was liability based. That was my interpretation of what Commissioner Dahl was asking us. Who,
Know who's liable for that. I mean, that's a contract. They don't have to sign a contract with us. They can find somebody else if they find it cheaper. That's a contract. To me, that's a separate issue. I'm just trying to get at who holds the liability for this thing and why somebody doesn't have any liability thinks they have a right to some of the.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So that is very true, right? When we were spending an awful lot of time with whether to go with Republic or some other private management firm for running the landfill, we again had hired Steve DiGiulio to make sure what we did was legal. And there was quite a bit of heat from our customers, both the industrial customers and the cities, almost unanimously, that they did not want the county to contract out the management. They said, all you're doing is giving it away. We had a meeting with Steve DiGiulio, who was surprised to hear about the governance committee because it is unique. The language of the governance committee says that the management of the landfill will be shared. That's why you have the government committee. that has city's representatives on it. He said, we have just been conducting 3 months worth of management discussions and we've stiffed them. They have not been involved. They're getting it back. He says, you need to make amends because that's part of the, we're violating our governance committee agreement. So I volunteered to meet with city leaders to see if we could reach a peace settlement. And the result was a number of agreements on what we would do. We would try to look for another route for delivering the waste to the landfill. Maybe using the idea was perhaps the abandoned railroad might be an alternate to get it off of the public streets. Another one was a recommitment that the odor was definitely going to be controlled through, vigorous monitoring and checking it out. And we'd look at ways to do something with the methane because burning it all at 1,700 degrees per stack is irresponsible. And of course, as you know, we're in the midst of negotiating with the PUD to do that. Turns out that the tunnel that the railroad goes through eliminated that as a possibility for the trucks. So that went by the wayside. And I think we haven't had any complaints that I remember about odors being a problem. Every once in a while, there may be some gypsum that gets inadvertently put in, but that has not been a major problem. And then we talked about the fact that the cities did not want us to fill up the landfill. They said no more than 500,000. And so we had the discussion about the profit potential for charging outside customers a higher rate than we charge our own customers. But that would be a significant savings to those customers from what they're currently paying to go to Eastern Washington outsiders. And that's when I suggested the concept of a profit sharing plan. And they were agreeable. They withdrew their support. When we talked about it, and mentioned it, Joe Gardner was a little nervous about whether we would actually make any money off of it. So he didn't support profit sharing right away. And then of course he resigned, and we had John Jabish come in, and then we never got back on track to authorizing it. To be honest, I believe Mr. Mortensen's been very consistent that they don't deserve anything of it. So right now we're collecting it all and we're spending it all on county projects, much of which benefits cities. I mean, court system and, improving the jail and all those things are community wide. We did get to a point where I met with several city leaders to talk about, well, what do you mean by profit sharing and how much should it be? And I had suggested all along that we use state law on the percentage that the counties get to share of the city's sales tax, which is only 15%. And I said, flip that around, let them take 15% of the $7 million in profits that we make. That was proposal. The meeting was left with the demand from Kelso that it be per capita basis. And that's where the discussion ended. So we haven't made any changes since then. And I think the city managers agree that they want to approve a rate increase until we revisit that profit sharing concept. So.
Well, they can try.
Hopefully
That gives me some history. If they don't want to pay a rate increase and we think one's warranted, I guess they can try and contract someplace else.
So I don't think that answered your question. I was there pretty much through the whole thing, and some of it is fair representation, but a lot of it is just advertisement for things that are totally irrelevant. Even from the fundamental concept that the cities don't pay anything, and that was rebuffed. The argument is equivalent to I buy at Walmart, so therefore I got to get a piece of the profit of Walmart. That's obviously idiotic. The cities are customers. They may choose to be our customers, they may not. If they wanted to take their trash elsewhere this afternoon, I'd be happy to sign a contract that says you're out of it, we'll get waste from somewhere else. I think you would do the same. I think you would do the same. So they don't contribute anything. And at any point, I've never heard them offer anything like helping us pay the bonds off in case Mount St. Helens blows again, or in case something happens that invalidates the landfill and so forth. So totally specious there. These other agreements, well, the history behind those agreements is pretty damned ugly. And I'll go into one of the agreements. The bonds were issued. The landfill was purchased with the bond funds, and shortly after the licensing of or the permitting of the landfill, the board sent a letter to Foster Garvey, I think, still asking them what would be the consequences of selling the landfill. What would be the consequences on the bondholders of selling the landfill? It wasn't asked like that, which might be a very reasonable question. You should always find out. I have an asset, how much is it worth? But the way it was asked was, what would be the consequences if we sold the landfill for, and there was a fixed dollar amount to waste connections. You don't ask something if like that if it wasn't cooked in. So clearly something was cooked in. Dennis is correct. There was a discussion presented to us, and it was in an executive session, so you can't really go through it, but it's what kicked off, find out what the landfill is valued at. During that whole process, there was a lot of false start, this and that. All the agreements and things that Dennis talked about, I bet you there is not a signed document from anybody in the municipalities that says it's okay for you to let the ELF fund go and to restructure it like this. We use our lawyers with the intent of maximizing the benefit of the landfill for Cowlitz County, regardless of the municipalities. It's a business. And that's exactly how it transpired. Nobody, there's zero obligation to give anybody anything on this, particularly as the chairman has observed. You have nothing to do with it. You're just a customer.
Well, I appreciate being brought up to speed on, because I've heard these things, and from the point of it's in the contract to, what I heard over the council meeting. So I like being up to speed. And if we have any more talks, they should be right here in this room and open to the public. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We got a letter from Longview telling us who they're going to appoint on that committee. I looked through this, and Solid Waste Advisory Committee appointment, members shall be appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. And I know I didn't sign for that appointment, and I won't sign for that appointment. I don't agree with the way she handles some things over there, and I don't think she needs to be on this board. So I don't know what the other two commissioners' feelings on this, but I can tell you right now, I don't support that appointment, and I would, and the fact that the city thinks they can just do that really kind of gripes me. And I'll probably call them on it and talk to them about that, because it's pretty clear right here. Members shall be appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. That's sitting right here, and that wasn't done.
So the very first request came from the person herself, and we passed on it. I joined you in saying no. And subsequent, we got this strange letter.
Yeah. So if it sounds like if you're still in an agreement, then,
I'm still with you on that.
then the city, that's not acceptable. And we will, I think we'll send a letter to do what we have to do. Tell them, go through the process, send us somebody we'll accept.
Now, that's not the governance committee, right?
No,
That's
governance
the
committee is different.
advisory committee, right?
Right.
And
Governance
we usually
committee-
have, on the guidelines, we have so many to represent cities and so many to represent industry and some at-large positions. if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
It does, specify that it could come from the city, but we're the ones that picks the person from the city. They don't. Governance committee is different, correct?
Yeah.
So, sorry. I ran on that, but
So if we ask the question, who owns the government of Cowlitz County? Who is the government of Cowlitz County? Isn't that the residents who live here?
This reminds me of a constituent coming up there to the podium and saying, you represent me, I want you to do this. We represent 114,000 people, not just people in Longview.
That's certainly true. That is certainly true. But we act on behalf of all 112,000 people that live here. That's part of the representative nature of our government.
Right, and we do that as best as we can. Clearly, with 114,000, there are conflicts all over the place, but
But with all due respect, you made it sound as if the government is different from the people when you said we don't have to share with anybody. And it's kind of like we all share the same people. We represent everybody. And I think it's unfortunate, it's unnecessary to behave as if we are at war with the customers that supply us with the revenues that we use to make so much money with that. But that's, we can
I'm-
continue talking about that and, it's not gonna.
I'm not at war with anybody. I'll talk to any of them. I just like things above board and not behind the curtain. If they want to talk to us about it, come here and sit down. I'll go over there and talk to them. I don't care. But I don't like these behind the curtain things. And all of a sudden having people in my ear, well, it's in the contract. Well, no, it's not. Quit lying to me. Don't tell me stories.
when somebody comes up to me and they say, you owe me $100, I'm going to ask them how, why, show me that I owe you $100. And if they ask again after they're unable to show me, I probably do show some kind of irritation. But I have this irritation with a lot of the advisory boards in the county. We don't put people on there to grind an axe on their behalf. We are there, we want somebody to provide insight. Like the person from Longview and the person from Kelso should say, do you realize what you're doing about your trash is prejudicial to the cities it's causing us harm? That's very different than saying, by the way, we want a piece of the money for no responsibility. Those are two totally different things. To characterize them the same is really preposterous and a tremendous stretch.
Well, if the general fund of Cowlitz County is on the hook for paying the bonds, and they've not been so far, the citizens of all the cities and those living in the unincorporated areas are going to be on the hook for it. We're all on the hook for it together. So they are sharing the risk.
So by your argument, we ought to just turn the whole landfill over to whoever wants it. I mean, they're citizens, right? That's how things get destroyed. We operate the landfill. You ought to be very thankful that our Public Works Department has done an outstanding job in the landfill. I don't think you could ask for any better than that. Even at that, the fact that we didn't go with a contract on that exposes us to liability in a way that we could have gotten that liability off for free. And we'd still have the money. And there was a mention about other counties paying, making profit for us. The waste outside county is pretty substantial, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Without it, we probably have to do something rather drastic, right?
That's correct. You know, our transfer station fees are the lowest in Western Washington by a significant margin.
Okay. We're butting along 2:30 and I know we have a presentation, so I'll try and honor that, but appreciate your indulgence and your time as always.
Thank you. We will follow up with our other items, which we can do next Wednesday. Thank you.
I did want to just mention one totally unrelated topic before we go. And
Sure.
I have spent some time with Joseph at the museum, and they have a real significant problem with their back entrance. Needs a roll down gate like at the Hall of Justice. It won't work. It's just, it's not designed for that. But the drug paraphernalia greets them every day when they use that back entrance. And I'm just wondering how much longer they have to put up with that when all you have to do is just build the door out.
We actually just met about that at our last facilities meeting. Totally on par with what you're saying. We've talked about building out as far as a roll-up door goes, or we're actually securing bids, seeking bids for fencing systems. So more of a, what do we call them? Ornamental fencing like Expo has. So the black wrought iron, just to see the price comparison of building out and doing a door versus securing the whole parking area. So we're just looking at our options, but you're correct. And we're aware of that problem. We're working on that.
I think you were there too and saw it.
Yeah, I agree with Dennis Weber. They should not have to come out and clean up needles and feces and all that other nonsense. I mean, that's above and beyond.
Yeah. A lot of our maintenance folks are out there too. So we recognize that it is a problem. So we're looking at solutions. We'll get you guys an update.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay. We can move in and gentlemen, I've actually been kind of looking forward to this, the Three Rivers wastewater, because I don't know exactly what the subject is today, but I know you have stuff in the works, so we're excited to hear about
It's about bond
that
issues,
going.
right?
Yeah. So I don't know, you're welcome to both use the one table or split or however you want to do it. You're more than welcome. We have a date, days. We had.
Look at that. Look what you've done.
You have to do is say wastewater.
If it's easier, you certainly can both be able, you can split the tables is really all I'm saying.
It's a different stuff. We just need to have a presentation of someone being
Oh,
run through that.
Oh, you weren't going to hand draw it? This is only a fraction of the people that were at the Longview presentation.
Yeah.
But it is recorded and sometimes people show up, sometimes they don't.
the chairman did advertise it.
We tried yesterday, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the last 2 weeks we've been talking about.
he announced it. Everything was fine until he decided he would no longer provide free Heineken at the meeting. You'll be back then, huh?
The mics have a little button. If you got a bright green light, then you're all set to go.
Okay, I'm on.
Okay.
And you tend to have to speak close to it and in front of it, tend to.
That sound okay?
It is absolutely okay until you look at us and then your voice goes away from it. See, so.
I'll
You've
figure
got,
out a
you've
way.
got a little room
I'll
to
figure this
move it
out.
right in. So
There
How
seems to
about that?
be,
Okay.
an accent with that particular microphone also.
I'm from the Midwest, from Wisconsin.
Ah.
I'm just from Toledo.
don't say just from Toledo. Toledo's cool.
Finding it.
That's us, okay.
There we go.
No, I didn't hear it stop. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for having us here. My name's Dwayne Leaf. I'm the general manager of the Three Rivers Regional Wastewater Authority. I've been in the position for 20 years and I am retiring at the end of this year. So I brought with me Joe Jordan, who is our current lab manager. He will be succeeding me and I've been training him for a little over a year. He'll be totally ready to take over for me. My belief is he'll be better at the job than I am, so that should be an advantage for you folks moving forward. So the Three Rivers, could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the Three Rivers Regional Wastewater Authority is obviously a regional treatment facility. We serve the city of Longview, the city of Kelso, small portion of Cowlitz County, and the Beacon Hill Water and Sewer District. We are formed as a joint municipal services agency, which means we're essentially our own little city. We do all of the administrative things a small city would do, pay our own bills, run our own personnel department, acquire our own insurance. It's a really nice arrangement that it's really been fun to work with. We are governed by two boards. The first board is the Board of Directors. Commissioner Mortensen is the person who is your board representative on there, and Commissioner Weber is the alternate. That board meets usually twice a year. The first meeting is in the spring or June, basically, and at that meeting, the Board of Directors reviews how we did the previous year on the budget, and then they offer suggestions and guidance as to what the budget should look like the following year. Then we meet in December where the Board of Directors gets another update on the budget, projects, how things are going, and they ratify the budget, which has already previously been approved by the Three Rivers Regional Wastewater Authority Operating Board. That board meets every month and they review our operations, they approve vouchers, award bids, things like that. That board is composed of appointed members from each one of the entities. So your appointed member is Patrick Harbison. That board's really been nice to work with because they're all professional engineers or managers for the basic water and sewer departments from the various entities. And so it's really been a pleasure working with them because they are very useful in vetting projects. We don't claim we always know everything. Sometimes we run into a snag and there's several options that we think would equally work, and that board is really good at winnowing through those options with us. So it's been a very awesome arrangement, and it's really been a pleasure working with that board over the years. Under myself, there are 4 managers, there's 4 departments, and Joe will go over those. He'll be handling the rest of the presentation after I do this brief part here. And by the way, please feel free to interrupt us with any questions you have. This is supposed to be informal and interactive. So
So your slide shows that you, the joint utility was formed in 2016. And your record says that for 19 years, you've been meeting budget. So
Yes.
before that utility was created, this entity's status was what?
we were a creature of contract, which was a contract between the 4 entities that own us. And they had bylaws on how things would work. And that really worked pretty well too. But really what the difference was that we were not able to bond and fund our own projects. So for example, if we're doing this big project now, we would have had to have had Cowlitz County or somebody bond for it, and that ties up your indebtedness. Whereas now that's not required. We can do that ourselves. So that was one of the reasons. And another reason, frankly, is when we were using other entities for our financial reports and things like that, we weren't tied into their computer systems. So we would get a report once a month as to where we stood. And because of the bill paying cycle, sometimes those reports could be months behind. And so it was kind of like black magic trying to figure out if we were going to make budget every year or not, because the numbers we were looking at were not current. And that was really an interesting venture and quite challenging.
And the situation wasn't particularly unique at all around the state. So leading up to 2016, the state passed the law
Correct.
allowing the creation for the joint utility. So I think we're one of the first ones to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think maybe Lot was first and we might have been second. But, our board was always looking at ways to help us be more efficient and to do our jobs better. And this was a real significant thing to allow us to do that. But the Three Rivers Regional Wastewater Authority actually used to be called the Cowlitz Sewer Operating Board. And in that format, we were in existence like from 1976, I think. And then we changed our name probably in the mid-2000s to the Three Rivers Regional Wastewater Authority. And then that stayed our name when we became the Joint Municipal Services Agency. So anyway, like the slide says, we've had really good performance. We've met budget 19 consecutive years. I've been there 20 years. I got trapped in that first year when I didn't realize how far behind our financials were. So I thought, oh, we're making budget. So we pre-bought some things that maybe I wouldn't have bought if I would have known. And so that's how come that first year we were over budget. But we've averaged a 1.5% budget increase per year over since 2004. So that, beats inflation almost every year. So we're really proud of that. The way we accomplish that is our staff is really motivated. Our mission is to do a better job every year than the year before and to do it and to save money while we're doing that. So, that's really been our method of doing this. And the staff I work with are so incredible. I mean, they're just amazing people. They really look at your money like it was their personal money, and that's how we basically, get things done. But a key factor in us being able to meet that budget thing is that we treat outside septage and sewage for other places, and we make money by doing that. And so the money we make gets rebated essentially against what it would cost the entities to run. So in the last 3 years, we have treated over $1 million worth of septage. And that money directly comes off of the bill that the entities would pay to run us. And so every year our goal is to treat more and more septage. And that's really what this big project is about, is we're going to be expanding our ability to do that because there's currently more of a demand for our services than we can actually provide given the way the plant was constructed. Because we weren't built to do any of this. The reason why we're able to accomplish this is our staff is really innovative about identifying unused structures in the plant that we can store product in and then bleed that into the plant process without making us violate our permit. And it's, our staff is really driven to make money, which saves our entities money. And that's really what our secret sauce is to having our budget performance. So I always want to make sure that we say that because it's not me doing this. It's really other people that have bought into what I want to do and make it happen.
So, yeah. I'm curious, you said outside septage,
Yes.
so outside of Cowlitz County?
Oh, yeah, most of it's outside of
So
Cowlitz
it's
County.
industries, businesses, or,
We are treating septage from as far away as Long Beach.
okay.
Really?
And we're treating it from some places in Oregon. I mean, it's, I'm very, I think of the right word to say this. I try to look at a public utility like it's a business. And so when I hear that other treatment plants don't like to treat septage because it's hard and it's a bother, I'm like, well, that is the excellent news for us because we want to take it and we'll take as much as we can get without violating our permit. And so, other places, I mean, it is it is a hassle to do extra work. But if it's got a benefit, you should do it. And that's really how we look at things. So we treat biosolids, we treat the biosolids from the Toodle treatment plant operated by the county. We also treat biosolids from Lewis County. We've treated biosolids from as far away as North Bonneville. We've done Woodland, we've done Kalama, we do Ridgefield. If we can fit it into our process and not violate our permit, we're going to do it. And all this stuff we bring in is a profit for us, which therefore creates essentially a savings for our owners. Go ahead.
So along those lines, by the way, I am impressed with the attitude, always have been. I appreciate that. The capacity of your facility now, if you were to give me a number that says I'm up to 90% capacity or 100% capacity, you've gradually taken more and more in, and the facilities haven't materially expanded that much.
Right.
But you've made much better usage. So at some point, that's got to stop unless you add more
Right.
capital.
Right. And so that's what this big project is really about. See, right now, ecology measures your plant capacity on your sewage coming in. And so the septage and the biosolids are not considered incoming sewage. So that doesn't affect that, but we can still only process so much before the aeration basin system and other parts of the plant just can't handle it. And so when we do this project, as Joe will describe in better detail later, we're basically building a facility that's a side stream to what the incoming sewage is, just to handle the biosolids that we currently treat from other people, the septage we treat from other people, and the expansion that we're looking to do to earn more money.
But then still, my question would still stand in that without the new building there, how much more material can you take in?
I don't think we can take in any more safely. So we're
Okay.
kind of capped at
From a practical engineering standpoint?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are, as Joe will tell you in a little bit, we basically treat a roughly a combination of 3 million gallons per year of septage and biosolids from outside facilities. We have many more customers approaching us, but we can't really get above that level. And so my goal is when we build this new facility, we'll be able to expand that level quite a bit and make it easier for us to get more customers through the door. This new project that we're doing.
So you say you'll be able to do much more. Will you be presenting us the exact amounts that your new capacity and what the market load is?
We are projecting to increase by a factor of 3.
Factor of 3.
Yes.
So if I did 100 today, afterwards you'll be able to do 300 or 400?
Well, right now we're doing about 3 million combined between septage and biosolids, maybe a little
I
bit.
use simple numbers like 100% of the baseline today. Anyhow.
Yeah, so it'll be 3 times that. So if we're treating 3 million gallons, our goal is to get up to 9 or 10.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if that answers what you're kind of asking for. So And I don't want to keep talking about this too much because Joe's be covering this in his slides a little further. So, this big project we're bonding for, there's two parts to it. There's some parts to replace things in the plant that aren't working. And then there's the biosolids part. The biosolids part is about half of this big bond we're doing. And that should be paid for by the combination of increased revenue from bringing in more septic and biosolids, and from the fact that the new process will actually save us money with the way it's being constructed. And we'll cover that kind of in a second too. So, but getting back to the J. Musa organization, since we've been formed, we've had no audit findings, which is a credit to our accounting staff because they make sure that we process bills and do bidding and do all the things you have to do to not have any audit findings. We've also been the recipient of the Department of Ecology's Outstanding Service Award for permit compliance 11 times since 2005, and that includes 2002. We're assuming we'll get the award in 2003 since we didn't have any permit violations. So, basically, we take good care of your money. We run a quality organization in terms of no plant violations, and we're looking forward to continuing that much more even in the future. So Joe is going to be handling the rest of the presentation. I'll be passing out a sample of our biosolids product a little bit later when he gets to that portion. So, you ready, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, next slide, please. Alrighty, so about Three Rivers, or Turwa, as we often refer to it as. Turwa is unique in the sense that it is essentially two separate wastewater treatment plants. What they can run independently of each other or in parallel of each other, which we use for times like these for the hydraulic loading when we have a lot of rain and our flows get pretty high. We have our north plant, that was the original plant built in 1976. And then we have south plant, which was built in 2002. Kind of for perspective, on average, we're treating about 255 million gallons per month. As another example, January with our very heavy rainfall, we treated over 500 million gallons for the month. And we cover a population of about 45,000. In addition, and as a byproduct of wastewater treatment is biosolids. And so in order to treat that, we use centrifuges coupled with a RDP line pasteurization system to produce Class A exceptional quality biosolids, which are the highest quality and have no limitations on where they can be applied or used. RDP was commissioned in 2008, and as an example, in 22, we produced 4,000 dry tons of biosolids, and the last year, 23, it was approximately 4,100 dry tons. The biosolids are produced and then through a contracted hauler are applied to agricultural fields fairly close to our region, Eastern Washington, Central Washington. And then as Dwayne hit on, we receive and process biosolids from local communities and septage from local septage haulers. These are the numbers for 23. We treated 1.2 million gallons of biosolids and 2.6 million gallons of septage. And as Dwayne hit on, these are outside resources and revenue points for us. Yeah. Moving on.
So the population figures you use are from the city of Longview, the city of Kelso, and Beacon Hill Sewer District.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
But you also get the leachate from the landfill, which covers the county too, so.
Mhm. And then we have a couple
And then you say
connections in the
Palama.
port area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, so how do we do it? Turwa has approximately, or has 25 full-time employees and is staffed 365 days a year, always working to produce a quality effluent being discharged at the Columbia River. In addition to that, Turwa houses roughly several billion microorganisms, and they're the ones doing all the work and treating all the wastewater that's coming in. And so when I'm kind of talking about the departments and everything, it's basically all these departments, either directly or indirectly, their job to support and provide the optimal environment for those organisms so that they do their job. And I'll often refer to them as bugs. That's kind of common. So first up, we have our operations department. And they are the ones operating the plant equipment and technologies, always setting up the plant to provide that optimal environment for the bugs so that they can do what they need to do. And when looking at the bugs, they're kind of like humans. They need oxygen and they need food. Too little food, they starve and start cannibalizing, and then they get upset and things don't work good. Too much food and there's just too much food, they can't clean it like they're supposed to, and then our effluent is compromised because of that, because they're not doing their full job. So a big part of the operations is maintaining that population, making sure they have the right amount of food and providing that proper aeration so that they can respirate. In addition to that, the operations are also managing the solids handling, and that's actually wasting the microorganisms from the system. That's the lowering of their population, because we also are trying to keep a young population at the same time. And then in turn, that's what produces the biosolids. And then they are loading it out to the hauler. Next up, we have the lab and pretreatment department. This is my department. We have a pretreatment operator who is monitoring the local industrial users and dischargers, the commercial dischargers, and making sure they're not putting anything down the drain that's going to harm our bugs and prevent them from doing their job. And then we have a laboratory tech. He's constantly monitoring the plant through specific tests. We have an accredited laboratory, and he's kind of keeping an eye on the bugs, letting us know how they're doing, how they're feeling, while also testing for required compliance limits through our NPDES permit, doing quarterly and annual sampling, both with our wastewater and our biosolids. Next up, we have the accounting department. They're the ones managing all the billing, invoices, the coming and going of the biosolids. They keep the lights on for us and make sure we can operate all the equipment, all the bills are paid. They're also ensuring that proper compliance and filing of plant expenditures are meeting the state auditor requirements. And last, but certainly not least, we have our maintenance department. Like I said, Turwa is running 365 days a year, and some of our equipment is running 365 days a year, 24/7. So they do an excellent job of making sure that we have all the equipment we need in times of high rainfall and everything to get it online and be using it so that the bugs aren't being compromised.
Do you have, I'm assuming you probably have redundant systems?
Yes,
Yeah.
extra pumps and yep. Okay, next slide, please. So now getting into the upcoming projects, the total project cost is estimated to be about 48 million, with half of that being projected to be funded out of operational costs, savings, and revenue enhancements. Just as a brief outline of all the project itself, we have the North Plant primary clarifier replacement. We'll be replacing the two original primary clarifiers in North Plant.
Before you go on that, on the top statement, what's what I might sloppily call the payback time? So you're saying about half of it is going to be funded by operational costs savings, but you don't save on that on the first day. It's over some time.
Do you have that, John?
I don't know if I have that exactly, but
Approximately is good, yeah.
I would say the debt for the solids handling part of the project is probably going to be retired in 10 or 15 years. But the bond is a 20, so that includes everything. It might actually be a little faster than 10, but
You're talking about 10 years is what you're saying?
for the 24 million, I believe that'll be paid off in about 10 years. but the bond itself, it's.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually surprised, but, that's not unreasonable, but, that based on, it would seem to be that it would come in sooner than that. So I'm thinking you're probably telling me a conservative number.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm leaving at the end of this year. I'm turning it over to him. I'm not leaving him with any bad surprises. So my projections are as conservative as I can make them because I want him to look really great after I'm done.
And still support the business case.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Then we have our solids handling upgrades. With this, that's going to be improving our solids ability, solids handling capacity for the plant. That's going to be our aerobic digester, an RDP system removal, and in place, we will get a drum dryer. And then the hauled waste system or station will be upgraded.
So again, on the first line item, the north plant primary clarifier replacement, that's something that would be categorized as not necessarily new, but truly part of a maintenance program. Okay.
Yeah, basically number 1 and 3 here, those are kind of upkeep or maintaining current existing structure, whereas number 2, the solids handling upgrades, that's more of the
Expansion.
upgrades and the revenue
Yeah.
increases.
So I'm assuming you have built up a reserve to take care of these, depreciation, or however you want to talk about it.
Well, actually, I would say not much of one. But what we did was, we raised rates 2 years ago, and we raised rates this year. And those rate increases.
I hate to be pedantic, but people can't hear you if yeah.
I even had my mic off. Sorry about that. Okay. So we have, we raised rates 2 years ago in last year's budget. Those amounts plus the rate, plus the money we do have is enough to fund the debt service for the first few years. We have planned to raise our budget by $100,000 for this project, either 3 or 4 times, depending upon what the bids come in at and things that we don't know yet. Each one of those increases is planned to take place every couple of years. And that amount of money, looking at the full budget, is about a 1% increase. So we raised rates roughly 3% 2 years ago, 5% last year. In the next, 6 to 8 years, there'll be several rate increases of 1%, and that is enough to fund this project. So that's the plan. Now, if the bids come in higher than we expected, obviously that plan will be adjusted. If they come in lower, that plan will be adjusted. Our goal is never to have a ton of cash reserves. And the reason for that is that the entities pay for that up front. And I have never wanted to collect a dime more than we actually need to run. And that's also part of this philosophy that leads to very low rate increases, because unless we have something defined to do and we have a 20-year capital plan, so we have good planning documents, there's no reason to carry a bunch of money that takes money away from your ability to fund your own sewer things, projects, because I just don't think that's the right way of doing business.
It's actually a complicated question because sometimes the cost of business, or I should say frequently, includes the cost of what I would call recapitalization and amortization in some cases. That's why the federal government insists that if you own a house as a rental, you're supposed to take depreciation and so forth anyhow. But I don't have a problem with what you're doing because you're obviously able to handle it another way.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, and then item number 3, the South Plant Headworks upgrades. Again, this is just kind of updating existing equipment. And really, it's occurring at the South Plant Headworks, but really it's for the North Plant. It's a North Plant upgrade. So I'll go into further detail on these things. Next slide, please. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so for the North Plant primary clarifiers replacement, this is going to be replacing the original primary clarifiers from 1976. Those original clarifiers were not built on pilings, and so they are actually settling, tilting, which compromises their hydraulic capability and just kind of compromises their ability to do what they need to do. So those will be getting replaced, and it's going to be modeled after the South Plant primary clarifiers, which will just kind of make a plant-wide consistency. And then also with the upgrades, we've kind of looked at what the South Plant primary clarifiers and their sludge pumping, how they have been kind of superior to the North Plant, and we'll be implementing that into the North Plant infrastructure, which will just overall improve operational quality. As I hit on the primary sludge pumps are also going to be replaced. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, yeah. And the South Plant clarifiers will be built on pilings this go round. Okay, next slide.
When you say improves the operational quality, is that a metric that I, as an outside observer, could see in terms of your effluent product?
Yeah, probably more so in the pumps. By replacing those pumps, we're going to be using what South Plant pumps have proved superior to the North Plant pumps, and that they are centrifugal pumps in the north. South Plant will use positive displacement, which just seems to pump our sludge a lot better. And
Okay, so I see the improvement is actually your energy consumption is going to go down based on what you just said. I'm just wondering, I've seen Department of Ecology demand quality improvements, like when Northwest Innovations was going to put some effluent back into the Columbia, it had to be cleaner than the Columbia. And I scratched my head and said, okay, but to which extent? You're just talking about operational efficiencies here. Okay.
yeah. Okay, so now the solids handling
Give
upgrade.
me a second. So I'm going to pass out examples of our current biosolids product and what our new biosolids product will look like. You can open this one and smell it. Please don't open this one and smell it. Doesn't that smell good? You will notice that this product looks pretty much like what you would get out of a Home Depot fertilizer bag. So it can be used on gardens. It does not smell. It can be used, you can actually use it to fertilize your lawn if you want to. So the reason why we like this product is it enables us to get away from strictly using our product in agricultural uses and not residential. This product will not go through a lawn fertilizer. It has a pretty strong smell. So if you were to use it for home gardening, you have to immediately incorporate it in the soil, which makes a lot of work. And so people don't typically use this around their home. Our current market is almost exclusively agricultural fields. We would like to get away from that to a certain extent because that puts all your eggs in one basket. It has not been an issue in this side of this area of the country as much as in the Midwest. But when I came from Illinois and Wisconsin, when I first started my career, you could go 2 miles and find a farm field. By the end of my career, you're going 200 miles, and that's just urban sprawl. We haven't seen that to the same extent here, although Ridgefield, places like Ridgefield have seen a lot of growth. They've consumed a lot of farmland. So we don't want to only have farmland if it might be harder to get to or more non-existent. So with this product, it's really great because you can use it for both. And so that expands our market. In addition, this product is about, at the best, 50% solids, so 50% water. This is 90% solids or 10% water. So the amount you have to apply goes way down. And that's part of our savings projections, is that we expect our biosolids hauling budget to go from roughly $350,000 down to $50,000, $70,000. So we'll say that every year with this product, if we have to haul it all to farm fields, which we think we won't. this product also can perhaps be something that somebody would buy in the fertilizer industry and use it as a fertilizer, turn it into, blend it with their fertilizer product. That is not even included in our financial projections that we might be able to sell this. We're just saying we're gonna pay less to haul it. And that's why I say my projections are very conservative, because we might make money instead of spending money on this. So I'll pass this around.
So can I infer that you currently do selling wholesale? And so at some point, I'm not going to go and find a package at Home Depot that says packaged by Joe Jordan or something like that.
I don't know. We haven't, that's something that could be possible, but we're not counting on it. And that's why I say the financial projections are really conservative, because we're just looking at what we can save, not necessarily what is possible to make.
So are you going to exploit the vendor relationships you have or the customer relationships you have with these guys to sell this, or you have to go find new customers?
We
All of the
should-
above, huh?
Well, right now, our relationships with our vendors, if you want to call them that, are strictly farmers. And so the farmers can still use the dry product. It just depends on us to how much we want to give them later on as to what makes sense, because we pay to have a truck to farmers and they get it for free. So the less amount we have to haul, the more we can save you money. So our goal is to come up with some combination of. This is the one not too open. So
Right now, it's looked at as a cost savings,
yes,
and it has the potential for retail sales, but that's not figured into
correct,
the deal. Yeah,
correct.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was the question.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes,
So-
we currently have to pay a contractor we just pay the contractor to haul it off. They're just under a contract to haul it off. They're the ones dealing with the farmers and getting rid of it for us. We don't really necessarily have the farmer contact because it is kind of difficult to get rid of in that quantity.
So, again, this is part of the way we sort of think, is that we want to not have all our eggs in one basket, and we want to create a situation where no matter what, we save money, and it'd be wonderful to make money. One of my personal preferences, although I have nothing to do with the decision, is I would always like to retain some at the plant site for the public to come get if they wish to use it for home use, and either charge a really nominal fee or nothing, because I think that's a good public relations thing to do, to provide that as a service. But that's my personal opinion, and that decision will be made by Joe in conjunction with the operating board and the board of directors 3 or 4 years in the future, when this project actually gets underway and we actually have the product in our hands.
And I agree with you on that. The little plant out in Castle Rock that makes soil that he sells all over, if he wanted to incorporate this, then he could work with you folks and do that. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So back to Joe.
Okay, so now on to the solids handling upgrades. I think a good way to start this, kind of to Commissioner Mortensen's questions, is kind of first give you an idea of how we currently are doing it, and then discuss the upgrades. So right now, we have a hauled weigh station where the septic haulers can come in and offload one at a time through a rather kind of small screening system. And then from there, that septic is actually injected essentially into our wastewater treatment process, into our primary clarifiers, first for settling to get the solids, and then it carries on. So with that, we are kind of susceptible to a potentially bad dump from one of the haulers. And also with that, kind of talking about the bugs again, the bugs can only eat so much. So we're putting them in, we're adding an extra food source to them with the septic coming in, and it's a very high food source, coupled with our regular wastewater flow coming in. So that's where we're kind of limited with capacity. We only have so much bugs to eat so much coming in for the septic haulers, and we don't necessarily want to find that limit of what is too much. As for the biosolids, staff have done a great job of using kind of retroing old structures, GTs, gravity thickeners, and the biosolids are brought into the facility and offloaded there where they're kept separate from everything, and then we can add them and pump them into our solids handling processing. So with these upgrades, that's going to improve all of that capacity and take the septage injection point essentially and make it separate from our regular systems. That way our current or our wastewater processes aren't susceptible to a bad load from somebody. So first up, we'll have the 2.2 million gallon aerobic digester. And this is essentially a giant tank where all the microorganisms, there won't be any food for them except themselves. So they'll start cannibalizing and digest themselves. And that already gives us more capacity. Plus, again, it's separate. Everything coming into the plant will be separate and go straight into this digester. So we just have to provide them the air and they'll do the rest and eat themselves essentially. And then,
So the effluent that we send from the landfill is not the same that you get from the cities, right? Because it's not,
Right.
right,
it's not human waste.
right.
Is how much of the load comes off of the landfill for you? I know we've heard those numbers and I can't remember how many
In the
gallons.
summer, it's actually quite a bit because in the summer, our flows are 5 million gallons. The landfill discharges several 100,000 gallons per day usually. So that's a pretty high percentage. And the strength of what the landfill is discharging is also higher than what the domestic is. So that actually, so it's not just the volume, it's a stronger volume.
Okay.
So that is something that the landfill is actually working with ecology and us on right now to do engineering reports to actually get down to the levels at which domestic is discharged. And there's reports being done, and our plant is also doing a headwork study right now because we've had some challenges from some industries that our limits are not what they should actually be. They should be more relaxed. And so we're having an engineering firm study that, and the results of that will then go to ecology because ecology has to approve our limits for what's can be discharged to us. And so we didn't want to saddle the landfill with shooting for a target that might change. We wanted to know the target, which, makes sense because it's going to cost, the lower the landfill has to treat to, the more it's going to cost them, or you actually. And so we want to know those numbers for sure. So we should have this summer sometime, certainly by June, we should have our results back from that study. Then we can talk with ecology and landfill and say, okay, these are the real numbers you need to hit. Ecology had actually agreed to hold off on requiring the landfill to submit their permit plans until the fall in order so that we could accomplish that. Because we worked with ecology and the landfill on this to make sure that, again, you weren't shooting for an unrealistically low limit because that would cost more money than if you weren't.
Great.
Okay. I will add to the digester operation that if ran properly and doing what it should, it is supposed to reduce the solids content by 38%. So right there off the bat, that's going to increase capacity because it's just going to consume itself essentially down to 38% of whatever we're receiving. Then we're going to be installing the Andritz drum dryer to replace RDP. I'd say right off the bat, that's a money savings because cost is 600 to 700,000 a year. And purchasing lime to add as part of our treatment. So it'll also lower the whole bulk of our product because we won't be adding the lime to it to increase the overall weight and bulk to it. The drum dryer will be operating off of natural gas. And as you guys can see, it's going to make a much more drier, desirable product. The current product we're producing, at best, we might be able to get it to 50% solids. The product coming off the drum dryer is going to be 90% plus. And so again, another reduction in the overall size and volume of the product, which increases our capacity, lowers our hauling cost and what we have to do with it on the back end. And then last, the hauled waste station, we're going to be upgrading it significantly using updated technology. The new system will allow for 2 trucks to offload simultaneously as opposed to 1. It's going to have less maintenance and operator oversight. It has an ability to self-clean itself. And it's going to improve the safeguards and controls of the plant process again, because it's going to go directly to the digester, not into our primary clarifiers. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, we'll add something to what Joe was saying. If you look at that jar with the green lid, about half of that content is lime. So how we got to this lower hauling number is the digester drops whatever goes into it by 38%. Because we're not using lime, the volume we're currently generating goes down by half. And then you're drying it another 50% from maybe 50% solids, getting up to 90%. So that's like a cascading effect of lowering what the end product comes out at, and that's really how we calculated the savings. And those are also pretty conservative numbers that we use for that as well, so. I think Joe will do much better than what I'm projecting.
Moving on to the last slide, the South Plant Headworks upgrades. Again, it's the South Plant upgrades, or the upgrades are occurring on the South Plant Headworks, but essentially this is to improve North Plant. The North Plant grit removal system was a rather poor design in that it didn't actually remove the grit till after primary clarification, after the solids had settled. So now we have essentially a sand grit trying to pump through the pumps, which are abrasive. They clogged all the time. It becomes an issue. The upgrades will now place the grit removal in front of primary clarification. The influent is going to come in, there's going to be rags removed, and then the grit will be removed. And it's kind of a two-phase process using centrifugal force essentially, which will likely, because of to the 2 stages, improve the removal. And it will centralize the plant process for all grit removal to be occurring at the South Plant Headworks as opposed to 2 different locations at the plant. And then that ends it. Do we have any questions?
The one question that I had is the overall bond issue, is that the 48 million? You're gonna borrow that to begin with, but you won't have any problem paying it off. I mean, it's planned out that the payback's based on the revenues that you get.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I was unclear about half of it, not being a problem.
Yeah, because of the projected revenue coming in and the cost savings, the true effect of borrowing 48 million means we're really paying back 40 or half of that roughly. So it's when we started the bonding on the project, we hired a financial manager, which is not required as part of the bonding process, but the financial manager acts to be on your side. It's kind of like if you buy a house and you have a realtor. If you're the buyer, they're not working for you, they're working for the seller, really. In this case, the financial manager works for us, and they look out after our interests to make sure that we're represented the best way, and that the actual bonding works out completely to our advantage. Because otherwise, if you're just using bond counsel and the underwriter, it's kind of like the realtor situation, where it's more skewed towards the people buying the bonds, not the people who are paying for the bonds.
When you do all this, what's a reasonable life expectation for all this equipment?
Well,
I know you've had stuff since the 70s, so.
yeah. Typically, I would think that the aerobic digester, which is really concrete and plastic pipes, that's, we have stuff that's that old from the 1976 project that's in
Okay.
pretty good shape. So that has a really long lifespan. The things that are expendable in the digester is the way the air is put into the digester, it goes through these flat membrane discs that can clog, and so you have to replace those occasionally. And that's very similar to what we do with the treatment plant aeration system. So every couple of years, we take them down in the summer when we're at half of our normal flow, and we can afford to do that, and then we replace a bunch of these discs. The pumps that we're planning on using are called Sulzer blowers. They are kind of a new thing. They are based on magnets. And so there's really very little maintenance. There's no oil changes to them.
Oh, wow.
So and we already have some of those. We already have one of those at the plant as part of a aeration basin expansion that we did, or improvement. We really like those. I mean, they're also not prone to issues with stopping and starting, whereas with regular blowers, they stop and start. That's not good for them. These can stop and start, and there's no maintenance impact to them. As far as the Headworks project, that's all cement, so that should be 50+ years. The drum dryer, I would guess probably 20-25 years. Our current line pasteurization system is about 20 years old, and that's really nearing the end of its life. But that also is subject to lime, which is very corrosive. The dryer is really not quite like that, so, you know, I don't really know how long it'll last. It'll certainly survive the bond.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been I don't know about you guys, but it's super educational for me. I had no idea. And I will mention on Tuesday that people should have been here to listen to this.
Agreed. Some questions? So, the digester, the material comes in through a pipe?
Mhm.
And it's an enclosed chamber of some kind?
No, it's actually exposed to the air. It
Oh.
basically it basically looks like a swimming pool with concrete subdividers, and on the bottom of it is a whole bunch of pipes that then just blow air through the bottom of it.
And so how do you keep the odor, what kind of odor control do you use?
Well, the current plant, we have very little odor control. The only odor control we have is biofilters for the lime pasteurization system. We are hugely blessed in our location because we're basically next to Capstone and across from the closed landfill. And so it's the only treatment plant I've ever worked at where I have never had an odor complaint because there's no houses anywhere near it. And, you know, we're regulated by Southwest Clean Air, and so they control emissions, but the digesters and the air and the aeration-based systems have never been on their radar for having the types of odors that are concerning. So there really is no plans for any odor control, and this has been vetted through Ecology and Southwest Clean Air already. So which is nice because that means, you know, those type of systems can be very expensive.
They put no pressure on you for emission of methane or anything like that?
Well, aerobic systems do not create methane.
Because you oxidize it at the start?
Right, because it would be something like an anaerobic system creates methane, hydrogen sulfide. Our systems are aerobic. So in an aerobic environment, you don't generate anaerobic gases, which is basically.
That's what the pumping hardware at the bottom is,
Yep.
you said?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, we do have a Southwest Clean Air permit, but it's for our 2 biofilters that come off of the lime pasteurization system. And we intend to reuse those because the dryer system will produce some odors, but that's going to be run through scrubbers we already have for another system. And then from there, it goes into our biofilters, and that takes care of those odors. Our Southwest Clean Air report that we have to issue every year is really an interesting way of looking at odors. They basically have us measure what's in the influent, and then they have us measure what's in the effluent, and whatever is different for things like chloroform and things that are organic, they assume that's vented off into the air, which may or may not be true. And so we sample 6 times, or sorry, is it 6 or 4?
4 times.
We sample 4 times a year. and create a bunch of data, and then we issue a Southwest Clean Air Report. We have not had any violations in many, many years for that.
Well, just so that you know, Mr. Mortensen is our delegate on the board of directors there, and I think I'm still your alternate too, so keep that good news coming.
Thank you.
So, it sounds like you've got sort of built-in redundancy such that you can shut down, maintain while another part of the plant is still operating.
Yeah, it's, our plant was built in 2000. The 2000 expansion was done because the winter flows overwhelmed the north plant. And I've had like several expansions like this in my career. It's almost universally true that trying to fix all the leaks in a collection system is way more expensive than building a bigger treatment plant. Because to fix the leaks in the collection system, you're tearing up roads, you're putting in new sewers. Most of the leaks actually probably come from homeowners laterals to get to the sewer. So it's usually not publicly acceptable to tear up everybody's yards en masse just to fix those type of problems. So they usually just build a bigger treatment plant. And what that means is that for half the year, we don't run one of the plants. We only have to run the other plant in the winter. So and it really is kind of a blessing if you think about it, because that means in the summer, the plant that you take down, you can do a lot of stuff to it to maintain it. And then the next year you can flip flop and do the other one. But each plant also has its own redundancy because ecology requires that. So there's twice as many things as you need to run each plant, but we only run each plant half the year. So we have, so as long as we pay attention to getting scheduled stuff done, which our maintenance staff are really unbelievable at doing that, we're always way ahead of the game. I cannot think of very many times in 20 years where I was actually worried that something was down that we didn't know was going to be down, that we had no way to get around it.
Along those lines, it's fairly low ground there. Do you have to have an emergency plan in case you're flooded?
We have not had any flooding in 20 years, and I don't think there has been any flooding there ever that I know of.
And you're right next to the canal.
Yes.
You're right next to the canal.
Yeah, we are next to the log pond that's got that little canal. It's kind of at the junction where the Cowlitz joins the Columbia River.
So your effluent goes out where? Does it go out into the canal or does it go under the street and out by five?
That's a very interesting
Fiber.
story.
Oh,
The physical discharge looks like it physically is in the Columbia River. But it's so close to the Cowlitz River where the Cowlitz River comes in that it's under the influence of the Cowlitz River. And there's huge differences in regulations between the Cowlitz River and the Columbia River. And a few years ago, I'll say a few, it's longer than that, it's probably about 10 years ago, Ecology attempted to make our NPDES discharge permit match the Columbia River conditions instead of Cowlitz. So I approached the board about this because it would have meant a huge expansion just for that reason. And we did an effluent study on where our effluent actually discharged. It was actually called a mixing zone study. And we paid probably $80,000 or $100,000 to study where our water went into, monitored up and downstream, compared that to the Cowlitz River farther downstream, so that we could prove to ecology that regardless of geography, the water itself was Cowlitz water. And that saved us millions of dollars of plant expansion, which would have been actually for no reason. Our organization is ruled by science. And so if the science would have said it was Columbia River, then we would have said fine. But if the science doesn't say it, we're not going to say fine. And we just needed to know the answer. I generally don't care what the answer is. I just want to know what the answer is. And so we were able to get ecology to look at our data and agree that it was really, no matter what it looks like, the actual water is Cowlitz water. And so we escaped all of those really obnoxious things we could have had to do.
I'll refrain from saying anything. And, when you look at the dryers, you're gonna consume a fair amount of nat gas, right? Do you buy that in the futures market, or how does that work for you?
You know, I don't know that answer yet. We actually, we wanted to nail down the construction schedule and a bunch of other things from Cascade Natural Gas, but they would not actually start working with us until we bid the project. Because they have to construct a line either coming off of what the new line they put in for Capstone or a companion line. And it's a pretty significant cost expenditure, and they weren't gonna do that unless they actually knew the project was happening, which, you know, I think that makes sense. So I do not know how that is going to work. In other states I've worked in where I built cogeneration facilities and we use natural gas, yeah, we were able to do it off the futures market, but I really don't know how that works in this state.
So in this case, it might look like you'll buy so many MMBTUs from Cascade Natural Gas over the next 6 months, and then the next 6 months, and next 6 months. Kind of like buying in the future, so you know what your price is here today.
I don't know if, I really, honestly, I don't know how that's gonna work.
Okay.
I think that's gonna be his headache, because I'll be gone before the project is constructed.
Well, the thing that'll make that important, well, it depends on the overall cost allocation, but nat gas is maybe is $2.50 a million BTUs here, while it's anywhere from 12 to 20 in Europe. And so it can move. So if you can handle a jump from $2.50 to $5, then you maybe don't lose any sleep over it, because there is no free lunch there, of course.
Right. Well, I have the engineer's estimate for what it will cost for natural gas. A current one is about 300,000 a year. And like I say, our lime is running up close to 700,000, so.
But you're counting on that savings.
Well, our lime used to be 300,000 when it first started in 2008, and it's basically doubled. So, you know, if we didn't make this switch, it was gonna just keep getting worse and worse.
Thank you. I'm under question.
So appreciative of you guys coming in. Like I said, it's very educational.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it, and we appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't want you to forget your stuff. Did Jessica need to see us?
Somehow it manages to get back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that.
The green, the green stuff at least gets back to you, right?
You know what you ought to do is in the big jar, put a little bit of
We had,
gold flake, so people are inclined to want to.
You really wouldn't want this to be open.
yeah,
No, but if somebody purloins it,
Oh.
yeah. We had Jessica earlier, so I'm just making sure that,
we could put that stuff right behind the back entrance of the
museum,
museum.
yeah. That's
Okay.
probably what it's like right now for them over.
But yeah, of course. Oh, home sweet home.
Yeah. Yeah. Jessica, go ahead.
Hi, it's Jessica Warren with Human Resources. I was wondering if we could do an executive session today.
It sounds like you need that because something is coming up real quick, so we can do that,
Okay, it's for collective bargaining,
okay? And how long?
15 minutes.
All right. So we'll just head back to executive session, collective bargaining, 10 minutes, she said.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Are you the cause of this? Marie?
I know, yes. I wish. Solve some of the world's problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. Great presentation today. I'm sorry the public didn't show up. I thank you guys for the frank conversation earlier that educated me and I'd like to know that kind of stuff. And unless there's anything else, we will adjourn. I'm in Olympia tomorrow for LSC. I'm told it's the last one. We'll see. So,
You are a trusting person.
yeah. Okay, we're